from Canada. It's the Cannabis Goldsmith, a show about art and design in all its forms. I'm Alex D., a photographer, a writer, a jewelry designer here in southeastern Ontario, Canada. We need art now more than ever, and the Cannabis Goldsmith is here every Wednesday to bring it. Well, it's summer. It feels like summer. Everything is green. My lilac, I have this huge lilac bush. It's massive. It's like 20 feet tall by 30 feet wide. It is in full bloom. You can smell it. It just smells great. It smells fantastic. I'm thinking, wow. I thought I killed it because I did serious pruning. You're supposed to prune these things in the fall, and I didn't. I pruned it just in the winter time after the winter had ended, and this is supposed to affect the flowering of the plant, apparently. But I guess maybe I did it early enough in the winter or the spring that I didn't hurt the plant. So anyway, I chopped all the little scruffy bits off it, the tiny little twigs around the base. I went really hard on it with pruners and pruned them all away. And the plant seems to have liked it because it's just like incredible. It's exploded in color and scent, and the birds are freaking out, and it's just something to see. But these lilacs, they don't last, but they're a sign of spring, so I'm happy about that. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about audio. I'm still working on audio. As a visual artist, we have to sometimes go into, we need audio, even as a visual artist. If you're producing marketing videos for your art, you have to think seriously about the audio component of it, of what you're trying to say, right? And you want to be able to capture it appropriately or correctly or right, or it has to sound the way you want it to sound. Maybe appropriate is not the right word, or right is not the right word. The right word is how you want it to be. That's the right word as an artist. You want it to sound a certain way. How do you get it to that point? Now, in order to get it to that point, you have to monitor it. You have to, as you're adjusting the audio, you've got a bit of audio, maybe a recorded voice or something, and you want to make sure it's what it is. You monitor it, and how you monitor it is with speakers. Now, generally speaking, most people use ordinary speakers for this. Over the years, I've used ordinary speakers to do monitoring. But a studio monitor is a different kind of speaker entirely. And a near-field studio monitor is a kind of speaker that's meant to be listened to when you're sitting really close to it. Now, speakers, generally speaking, have fallen into three groups. There's the consumer grade speaker, like these little USB speakers, or speakers you meant to play something, and it's, say, in a room, and you plug your phone into it, or you stream Bluetooth, putting out music in the environment where you are, say in your apartment or home, and you're walking around the kitchen, or you're doing stuff, you're walking around. And this speaker is broadcasting the audio into the room. And that's what it's meant for, that little speaker. It's meant to do that. So it's meant that if you're in you're not directly in the speaker's path, you can still hear it, sort of. It sort of sounds okay, right? So that's what those are. Those are kind of consumer grade speakers. Then you get the extreme, you get a little higher level of that. You get home hi-fi speakers, which is where I've been most of my life. It's a speaker that's meant to be put in a living room and played, or in a dining room or some room and played. And the living goes on around it. Like you're not supposed to sit. Well, you actually are supposed to sit in front of two of them and to get proper stereo imaging in your lazy boy chair and listen to them. But no, that's not what happens in real life. In real life, people are walking around, they're chasing kids or dogs around the house, or they're, cleaning or sleeping on the couch, or they're not directly positioned in front of the speakers in the room. So the sound, they're not getting a complete stereo image. They're getting bounces. The sound is bouncing off different parts of the room or getting absorbed in other parts. And so it starts changing the quality of the sound. Now, these hi-fi speakers, the home hi-fi kind of speaker category, they can cope with that, generally speaking, And if you're walking around the room, you get a pretty good sound out of it. If you have a room equalizer, maybe, and the old school 80s kind of vibe stereo, where you can sort of adjust frequencies, and oh god, it was the 80s was such a home stereo kind of, like, extreme home stereo kind of moment. And I probably never left that when it came to speakers. The speakers I've had all my life I've always wanted big commercial speakers, like the kind that they used in nightclubs or whatever. This is what I wanted in my house my whole life, right? But it's not appropriate. It's just they're too big, and they just don't sound right in a house. So I've always defaulted to as close to that as I could get, but in a home kind of speaker. Now, for years, this company Sherwin Vega, used to make these speakers. Head 15, I think they were called, big 15-inch woofers in these things, and they could make your house, your apartment, sound like a nightclub, and this was as close, I think, as I got to it in a home stereo speaker. But anyway, that's still not practical for what I want to do here, and what you want to do as artists, right? The other category of speaker is, the third category, is studio monitors, right? Near-field studio monitors. And near-field means you're going to be sitting close to them. So they're designed to be listened to sitting right in front of them at a certain distance. And they have to be positioned in a way, in an equilateral triangle with your head. So you're sitting at your desk, and there's a speaker to your left and a speaker to your right, and that forms a triangle. Now, the triangle has to be equilateral. It has to be the same all around. And then you get the stereo image that the studio monitor is meant to deliver to your ears. So that's the starting point for studio monitor placement. They recommend that you get these speakers and you position the tweeters pointed at your ears. If you're working at a sound desk, they recommend that. Now, when it came to what I wanted to do, it's like my whole life I kind of, like I say, I could never afford what I wanted or needed or thought I needed, and ended up getting the next best or worst thing, or maybe kludging something together, or getting something on sale or secondhand. My whole life has been like that, right? And I'd never had the proper tool for audio, for the audio that I wanted to do, create. I mean, as a DJ, you need bass, and if you're playing, DJ music, you need bass, and you need some clarity, you need volume, loudness, you need all that. But when you're producing a documentary film, or if you're producing marketing videos for content creation or something, your needs are much different, right? You need accuracy, and you need clarity of the vocals, because that's where the messaging happens, right? So anyways, I was thinking all about this because I'm doing this documentary film, Preserve the Beat, about this scene, about our the birth of our electronic music scene in Canada in the 90s, 93 to probably 2005, based on photos from Tribe magazine. So I've been recording audio here for this podcast, but I haven't been really listening to it except on headphones. So I have a good set of headphones, so I know what it sounds like before I put these podcasts up. But to hear them on speakers is another thing, right? And it reveals, studio monitors reveal issues, and that's what they're meant to do. They're meant to reveal problems in what you're producing. And the reason why is that you can solve the problems before you let your audio go out into the world. So as an artist, you know the importance of doing good work and making your work the best it can be. And in this case, with audio, with studio monitors, it allows you to hear problems in this is not easy listening. This is not sitting back and enjoying music. This is you're listening for problems in the audio. And a good studio monitor will reveal the problems. And then you can correct those in software, in audio software, or re-record the whole thing if you have to, or do whatever you have to do to make it right. So that's the importance of studio monitors. So I knew I had to get some, and I didn't know which to get. Now I'm going to say right off the bat, none of these products are sponsors of this show, and the ones I ended up buying, I paid for. So none of this is marketing. This is just what I've learned, right, about studio monitors. So for my purpose, I'm doing a documentary film. It's going to have a very big music component. Now I've got a person who I've asked already to do mastering of the audio for it when it comes to that time. So that person has a lot of experience. They have a recording studio. They know their studio. I've heard the albums they've released. They can produce records out of it. They produced a lot of music. They remixes. So they know what they're doing, right? They're professionals, and they know what they're doing. So the music will be listened to by them. I'll get the music together and I'll run it past them, and they're going to listen to it on their speakers and on their system, and they're going to be able to tell me what might need to be lifted or smoothed out, or you get what I'm saying. So in their environment. But in my environment, I'm listening for talking, because I'm going to be narrating, right? So I want the voice to be right. And also I'm going to be incorporating sound effects and sounds and stuff into the documentary, and created here in the studio by myself, and mostly, or by animals and stuff in the area. I'm recording a lot of natural sounds, and I want to make sure it all sounds good, right? So I needed a set of studio monitors that would reveal what I've recorded in its entirety, so that I can minimize bits and pieces and bring up other bits to make it sound the way I want it to sound. So that's what a studio monitor is. It's a mirror, right? Or it's a revealing tool is what it is. So anyway, my choices were, I should mention, before I go into my choices, I should mention in the 3 categories of speakers, there's also price classes. So you have the USB or Bluetooth speaker. You have the cheap one, you have the medium one, and you have the extremely high-end one. All right, and then in the hi-fi consumer speakers, you have the low-end El Cheapos, which I've in the poorer stages of most of my life is what I could only afford and hated but bought anyway. Then there's the more kind of higher-end tiers, and then there's extreme tiers like professional level tiers too. In speakers. And then same in studio monitors, it's the same thing. There's kind of entry level, then there's mid-range, which is where I went, which is what I purchased, and then there's kind of extreme high end, and I can't afford that. Let me describe what you do with these studio monitors. And the reason why I bought the ones I did. The ones I bought Yamaha studio monitors, and I did some research as to what are the differences between them. And the differences between the different types, you've seen woofers, the colors of the woofers are different, and they're differentiating themselves from a marketing perspective with the color of their woofers, these speaker brands. So Yamaha has white woofers, and the KRK has yellow woofers, and the Genelec extreme, massive, expensive, like hugely out of reach speakers, those have shape. They have an interesting kind of form factor shape that is immediately recognizable. They're the curviness or the box, the speaker box that they come in. So they look to visually differentiate from each other, which I find is interesting. They don't need to do that because they sound completely different. Now the ones I got, the Yamahas, where people kept saying, I got the HS5 model. The HS5i model, which is meant to be, it has screw holes in the side. This is going to be installed in a room, right? This is not going to be on a pretty shelf somewhere. This is going to be screwed into a wall or ceiling and pointed at my ears. Like, that's the purpose of it. So I needed screw holes in the side of the side of them. So that was a need for me. And Yamaha, the HS Studio Monitor series, they have an HS5i and an HS8i, or whatever. The I means installation. And screws come with it. You just have to get some way to hang these speakers and point them. So that took a while for me to figure out, but I've done it. The hanging it's pretty complicated, and you want to do it safely so they don't fall on your gear or on you. Okay, do that. Make sure there's a safety tether on each, and make sure they're screwed in tight, but also have a safety tether too, so they don't destroy valuable machinery in your or competing or whatever in your space or you. Okay, so I went with the Yamahas because they are known for their ability to reveal problems in mid-range and high end. And in that case, that's vocals, which is what I want to deal with. So my music, all the bass stuff, I can't really check bass on them because they're not for that. They're meant to check in the veracity of the audio in other ranges, right? Mid-range and high. But that's what people say. So I had no idea. When you buy these things, you got them, right? You want to make the right choice when you buy them. And people are saying, oh, these Yamaha speakers, when you first turn them on, they sound really thin, and they just don't. They sound really thin. And you don't be surprised if they sound. They warn you, right? Whereas the KRK speakers, the ones with the yellow woofer, as they differentiate, have a more bassy kind of sound. And you'll recognize the KRK woofers appear in many, many social media videos. People either use them just as a display, or they actually use them to monitor as studio monitors to monitor their audio. So they're another kind of option for me. But I didn't need the bass. I need the mid-range and high, the ability to reveal issues. Now, I had no idea what that even meant, right? I knew, okay, maybe it allows you to hear the mid-range and high clearer, which is what it is. It's strange. Let me tell you a story. There was a super hot girl who I wanted so badly in the 90s. It was like in the spring of the 90s. I was like, oh, she was so hot, and I wanted her so badly. So back in those days, you asked girls out on dates, which is what I did. And I thought, okay, where am I going to, I'm going to take her somewhere memorable. Now, at the time, I was a huge Peter Murphy fan. Peter Murphy, musician, huge fan. Kind of the dark energy that he had, I guess, coming out of the 80s, and I just liked that sound, right? I was like, okay, Peter Murphy's playing at RPM. I'll take her to see Peter Murphy at RPM. So I thought, oh, this is great. So I went down to the club. This is a club in Toronto on the waterfront. It's gone now. It's like it turned into the government, and then it turned into a condo development. But back then, it was just this big nightclub, just a big room, right? So I went in the day to buy tickets, and I went down there, and they were sound checking the opening act. And the opening act for Peter Murphy was 9 Inch Nails. And this, I think, might have been one of their first gigs ever or whatever. Nobody even knew who they were. So the sound check, they were sound checking when I went to buy the tickets. So I went into the room and I talked to the sound guy, and he was checking the sound setup with Talk, Life's What You Make It. Okay? This is what the track he was using as a reference track. Life's What You Make It by Talk. And it sounded really good in the room. And I asked him why you're using this track. And he said, it has everything in it I need. That's all he said to me, right? He probably said, get the hell out of here, you scruffy little. Anyway, the long-haired sound guy, this Talk record had everything in it the sound guy needed to adjust the levels of the audio for the Nine Inch Nails Peter Murphy concert. Okay. Now I took the girl to the concert, and Peter Murphy actually was okay. Nine Inch Nails was okay, sort of. It was kind of weird for me. I'd never heard them before, and the young woman I brought, she immediately called them the 10-inch snails, which lost all that, it's bigging them up, and this new, even the opening act is a new band that we got to see because they're so cool and all this stuff. The 10-inch snails that decoolified them immediately. The woman became my girlfriend after for I guess just over a year we were together. But I don't think it was a result of the concert. But so I bought the Yamaha, the HS5i studio monitors. They arrived. I installed them as recommended. I had to lift them above the video monitors on my desk. Yeah, I can't put them on the desk because I have 2 video monitors on the desk, so I can't put them on the desk. So I had to hang them above the monitors so that the speakers are pointed at my ears and the monitors don't block the sound coming out of them. So that I had to figure out. And then I did that, and then I got them to work, and I put on Life's What You Make It by Talk, and I immediately heard stuff in it that I had not heard before. I was like, wait a minute. I've listened to this record. I tested all my home systems with this record. I test headphones with this record. With this song. I test everything with this song. Ever since sound guy for the 10-inch snails told me this was the record to use, right? So here I am. I'm listening in this tiny little room. That's another thing that's important. Tiny little room. I'll get to that in a second. But I started hearing stuff in this Talk song that I hadn't heard in my entire life. Wow, hold on a minute. And then I could hear how thin it sounded. It would all sounded, there didn't seem to be bass at first. But then you hear it. You hear the bass with these speakers. They're a different type of speaker, and they're meant to reveal problems in audio. And or they're meant to reveal things in audio that you can't hear with other speakers. It's okay. Now, once you've done that, what do you do with that, right? Well, you adjust it, you correct it, you make it sound good to you. And then you take that audio and you listen to it on a phone, or you listen to it on a home hi-fi, or you listen to it on a car stereo, or you listen to it on different audio output devices. And if it's corrected properly, it'll sound great on all the devices. And a studio monitor, speakers will allow you to do just that. So that's the whole point of them. Now, they're different. I'm not going to recommend, I've mentioned some names here, and I don't even recommend the Yamaha ones to you. A lot of the choice is the personality of the speakers, what you want to do with them, the monitors, the studio monitors. I'm optimizing for dialogue, so that's what why I bought the Yamahas. If you're optimizing for dance floors, you might want the KRKs or something with more, or Atom or some other brand that has a kind of a bass a more of a bass response that you might be more familiar with. So what happens now is like I can record audio, voice, I can record sound effects, I can check it in the room, and this sound is going to be input onto a track, into the soundtrack, or multiple tracks. So that's what it's about. But these speakers are very small usually. They're not huge. These studio monitors are very small. The HS5 is a 5-inch woofer. That's all it has. In a small apartment situation where you're in a spare room, perhaps recording your podcasts or mixing your tracks or whatever in a small residential setting, you're not in a big commercial space or anything, or a treated room, or that's a whole other thing, treating the room. But you're just at home. You're in a regular home, right? The tiny size of the studio monitor is deceiving because you're sitting close to them, right? And they're designed to be sat close to, pointed at your ears in an equilateral triangle. And this is what they're made for. And you get everything out of them if it's done right, if the room's set up right, if they're pointed right, if they're the right speakers for your project, it'll be great. So that's what I'm doing. But now I'm faced with this circumstance that, okay, I have to take out some of the crisp, that high end that I don't like, right? I just have to eliminate some of the bounce. So you'll get foam tiles or whatever, you move them around, maybe a roll of padded fabric in a corner or something. Just move stuff around until it sounds good to you. And once your speakers are positioned properly, and revealing the true sound of your audio. Anyway, I'm almost afraid to go in there now and listen to another record because I might hear stuff that I never heard before in it. Well, it's really strange with that Talk Talk record because this is something I know like my own hand, basically. It's I know it, right? And yet, wait, hold on. I never heard that before in that song. It's not a new remix. It's the same track, right? Like, whoa. All right. Next week, I'm going to talk, we're still in the audio realm. Listen, as artists, we have to do all kinds of stuff. So it helps to know about studio monitors and stuff. Use AI, do research on studio monitors. You don't need the most expensive ones. Go in the middle. And you don't need the biggest ones because you're working in a smaller space usually. You're working in a residential space. You're sitting close to these speakers, so you don't need big, giant 8-inch woofers in them. You don't. You need something that reveals the truth in the audio you are producing. All right, what's going on? I'm watching documentaries on synthesizers. I've watched 2 so far. I'm going to watch the Carl Craig one tonight. And I'm going to bring you, next week, I'm going to bring you an entire show on electronic music synthesizer documentaries. They're good. They're really good. Even the bad ones are good. So you're going to get a whole show about that next week. I'm learning so much from them. I've learned so much. I learned that, let me give you just a tip, that, all these sounds I thought were electric guitars on a lot of my favorite 80s bands were actually synthesizers. I thought, you had to be a guitar whiz, a master at guitar. No, these guys were just they were winging it, a lot of them, and using synthesizers, which were a new thing at the time. These documentaries are fascinating. So I'm going to bring you a whole list of them and which ones are really good or not, which to watch, and which are really interesting. So you'll be able to check out some of those if you want. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Everything is green. Everything is growing. I'm working. Nose to the grindstone, art producing, sound a listening, flowers blooming, trees growing, spring. See you next week. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. We recorded in our studio in southeastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence River, where we can see America across the river. Subscribe to the Cannabis Goldsmith wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show and tell your fellow artist friends about it. It's the only artist podcast coming to you right from a studio every Wednesday morning. We'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. Oh, if you want to reach me, send me an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening.